Right, you want some punk rock?
Later.
You want some real punk rock? Real punk rock, okay? Now this is real punk rock.
The punk movement is one of the most important musical movements in British social history. The Sex Pistols were one of the main bands that were part of the punk movement in the UK. Most who identified as punk did more than just enjoy punk music. Being a punk meant they subscribed to certain ideologies that were part of the punk movement. These included the do-it-yourself attitude to life and the production of music, as well as the anti-establishment mentality and political bias.
Run your own life, you're in control. Can't think for yourself, running what you're told. Do follow your friends and your beliefs. Do have to test it within the just you keep. Politicians, soldiers, weapons in command, rousing the power in their hands. Using us for their own ends, can't you understand? Lust for power must destroy his plan.
The fundamentals of punk were to go against the grain, to be different and alternative to what was common in society. Punk was more than just a music movement. The rejection of the establishment from the youth of the day was politically significant, expressed through the music they listened to. This was clearly evident in their music, and most bands took a political stance within their lyrics. Bands that took this sort of anti-establishment political stance were known as anarcho-punk, bands like Crass, The Exploited and Chaos UK. The anarchist punk bands simply wanted to get rid of the current political system. They called for rejection and rebellion. They tapped into a feeling amongst the youth that the government did not take care of the masses and the masses did not need the government. The feeling that left-wing and right-wing sides to the political system were just a way for the government to divide and rule the masses. They did not wish to conform to the same ideals of others. They did not feel as though they had a place in society, so they found their place, as they believed, out of society.
Well, I think I was 15, it would have been 1978, and I think one of the first things I remember seeing was a big double-page feature in the Daily Mirror, and it was very exciting, very dangerous and rebellious. You know, it really, up to then I had no interest in music.
It was a fashion element, but primarily, but then all the music kind of drew you in. Bands like The Ruts and Penetration and all these really great bands with great lyrics that sort of meant something.
Yeah.
I never really became totally immersed in the punk movement. I was a bit more eclectic, but all my friends and all the people I was associated with were very into it. So I got to read music, see a fair few of the bands. So, yeah. And I knew Bear, the last
write bits down on paper and then you write another bit.
when we were at secondary school together, we became very good at domain between the ages of about 14, 20 to say.
Ronnie was a hero, we watched it on TV. Semi-naked women at a club for 19. Man and make his job, country never seen.
for me, when I was 15, it was really all about total rebellion, total rejection, sort of values, family, everything really. It's like a real sort of ground zero, start again, and that sort of changed into being part of a real scene over the years, I think, right from 78 up until a long time past that. And yeah, it sort of changed very much from being a total rebellion to much more of a homegrown D.I.Y. thing, which I was involved with as well.
I'm one of those people that thinks that was present in the 60s garage bands that were punk, all the usual Velvet Underground and Reed and MC5, they were punk.
It's a sort of bit of an act of rebellion, and I think today kids are so lucky because they can just draw from all these hodgepodges of different sort of movements.
Another easily recognisable characteristic of someone who identified as punk is their do-it-yourself attitude to life and music. Most punk bands started their own record labels or signed to record labels that were for punk bands only. This meant they could produce their own music without the control of big corporate labels. The freedom they had made is so that the punk bands could remain alternative and creative rather than having their music changed to fit popular culture. Punks did not want to conform to societal norms and did not really even want to be popular. They had accepted and in fact enjoyed their place on the fringes of society. Their music was a release from the struggles of everyday life for both the members of the band and fans of the movement. It was a release that was personal and not supposed to be controlled. Without the DIY attitude, punks could not remain as anti-establishment. To be free, they needed to do it themselves.
It's changed my life from what I probably would have done to, completely different outlook on life, and friends, and just love the music. So it's completely changed everything in that respect. And gave me a sense of being able to do what I wanted, do it yourself, the real D.I.Y. punk ethos, which I totally embraced all the way through, doing things for yourself, finding your own place to live, making your own bands, making your own clubs, squatting just round the road, from this place. So yeah, very much so.
I suppose every generation says, I'm so glad I was born in this decade. I really got to enjoy all this music, and it's such a brilliant thing that I could do this. So I suppose there's that really, just feeling that all the music was so phenomenal. And the fact that there were lots of women singers was pretty good, and I think that's yeah, a good thing.
I think the most positive thing it's had on my life, I think it's had the same effect on nearly everybody you've interviewed. They've all done their own thing all their life.
D.I.Y.
They've gone for things, they've just done what they wanted to do, and here they are all in middle age, and they're still doing exactly what they want to do. I don't know many of them that get up and do a 9-to-5 job, and I admire them for that.
Drug addiction, alcoholism, death.
Well, I think there was a lot of sort of sitting around and hanging out, and a lot of sort of drinking, which wasn't necessarily bad. We had lots of fun.
Negative effects? No, I can't think of any, except a lot of that crowd came to sticky ends.
It wasn't really negative at all. Although it always came across it's on the outside kind of looked very negative, nihilistic thing. But the people in it did all believe in things. And, it changed and involvement with the whole scene changed throughout the sort of 70s and 80s. From, one thing to another. But yeah, I don't think it was very negative things.
As well as record labels, many punk rock shows and clubs were organised by the punk bands themselves. Someone who was truly punk did not let the system have any control over how they produced and played their music. However, many of the biggest punk bands were signed to major record labels, such as the Sex Pistols signing to EMI in October 1976, and The Clash signing to CBS.
4-minute warning!
Many think that this is what spoilt the movement's popularity in the 80s. Ironically though, the punk movement never wanted to be popular. However, Chaos UK, one of the biggest punk bands to come out of Bristol, did not sign to a major label. They signed to many labels, but most were semi-independent or subordinates of major labels.
4-minute warning! 4-minute warning!
They truly subscribed to the punk way of life. Even the lead singer goes by the name of Chaos. The D.I.Y. attitude is strongly shown in the way punks dressed. Most of the punk fashion was developed through aspects not controlled by the big corporations. It was done by the punks themselves. Tights ripped by hand and piercings done on the cheap are just two examples of punks making a statement through their fashion. Haircuts were also hugely significant to punk fashion, as they were in other major musical or cultural movements. To go against the hippie culture that was prevalent in their 70s and 80s, punks shaved or cut their hair short again to go against the grain and undermine popular culture. Much of the clothes the punks wore were inspired by the works of fashion designer Vivienne Westwood, who is regarded as one of the most significant designers in the history of UK fashion. Westwood was enthralled by punk culture, the way it shocked people through how edgy and alternative it was.
They're on the best duties, fingers on the kitties, got the wire kitties, got food on the stair, got to get to the glass, run a drunk for one thing, got to drink around, I'm not gonna go anywhere. what they want every time. Do what they want to change my mind. Do what they want every time. Do what they want to change my mind. Put on the black shoes, fingers on duties, stop and watch duties, got food on the stairs, let me get the people run, want to close and watch without the piece of brain will run and touch, I'll go anywhere. Do what they want, every time, do what they want, to change my mind, do what they want, every time, do what they want, to change my mind. Do what they want. Put on the pants, duties, fingers on duties, goblins on duties, got food on the stairs, get to get to the blood, want to go for one to touch, keep the train go run or touch, don't go anywhere. Do what they want, every time, do what they want, to change my mind, do what they want, every time, do what they want, to change my mind. Do what they want, every time, do what they want, to change my mind. Do what they want, every time, do what they want, to change my mind.
She brought this into her fashion designs, incorporating huge platform shoes and spiked clothing into her catwalks, as well as opening shops across London selling punk clothing. Punk clothing was about being different from the rest of society. This was where the colourful piercings and hairstyles came from. However, there were aspects that seemed to be inspired by other cultural movements, like the shaved hair similar to the skinhead gangs, and the leather jackets similar to the greasers. The punk look was one of the most important aspects of the punk movement. They wanted to be separate from the rest of society, and dressed in a way that would showcase this in the most elaborate and shocking ways.
Have you got any dirty films?
No.
You bastard!
I'm an alcoholic, and I just love the kick. I'm dribbling my words, got a glazy stare, because I'm addicted to a thing called...
We were creating our own scene, and pretty soon I'd say that we were sort of shining what's happening in London. There was more going on in the punk scene in Bristol, something like Nottingham, wherever it was in London. It had changed from the first wave of bands. This is with Clash, sort of second, third generation bands like us.
I think there's Bristol was kind of, I think it's an important place for sort of, definitely for sort of crusty punk and things like that.
Oh, Bristol had a big punk scene. I sort of kind of lost interest by once bands like Crass and Discharge started coming along. I found them a bit, I don't know, a bit grubby. But Bristol had a thrive. I mean, they say, I think Bristol was the birthplace of the crusty movement, which I think is officially recognised. I think actually the Ivory Vaults pub, I think it was where it was born. And most of the people you will interview today were involved with that. And they had their own